Hey everybody, welcome to Fast Track Coaching Ask Dane. This is our 89th episode, and really glad you guys are here. For those of you who are catching us in the replay, you missed some fun drama with sound, and we put it all out. But there's a lot going on in the studio today. Getting ready for a workshop that's happening tomorrow, so some participants will be arriving any minute, actually. We're going to go to dinner together after Ask Dane. I had a blog post on the blog.danesanders.com site that actually a couple of them this week. One got a disproportionate amount of attention, and the other one I think is actually a stronger article, but really fun dialogue over there. So that's taking a lot of attention. Getting ready for Escalate Live, which is this coming week. Can't believe we're back at it again. The Kubotas and I have teamed up, and escalatelive.com is where you go if you want to. There's a free content, totally free. There's also, for under $20, you can see the entire event. And if you want to get the downloads afterwards, super high quality. We brought in these award-winning videographers to help us with that. You can get that as well. In fact, I think if you pay the $15 to watch the event itself, you can actually get that as a discount on the download later. But that's at escalatelive.com. I encourage you to check that out. But we got a lot going on, to say the least. And but this Ask Dane conversation is always one of my favorite parts of the week. It gives me a chance to connect with real people and have a conversation, a real conversation, where it's myself, my guest, and you. And the hope in it, oh, by the way, I'll take off this question here because you can't hear me now. The hope is that you guys would see this time as a chance to interact and get something out of it, that you get one or two nuggets that you can actually work with in your business. And try to, what Chris Brogan says, move the needle of your business just a little bit. You do that enough times in a row, you'll make significant progress. And my hope is that that's what this time will be for. To do that, the best way to do it is to not be a spectator, but to be a participant. And the way to do that is to sign in. You can do that with Twitter, or you can go ahead and register with Vocal. Either will work great. If you want to let people know about this so they can join in as well, that'd be fantastic. But I think it'll be a great way for you to engage. You either ask text questions, or you can ask video questions through the Vocal interface. If you ask it on Twitter or in the chat room, we may not get to those questions. So I strongly encourage you guys, if you can, to ask the questions by clicking the little light bulb in the lower right-hand corner and diving in. One other quick note I want to mention, next week's Ask Dane will not be aired at its normal time. We're actually going to change that up, and since Escalate Live is happening, we thought that would actually be far more interesting to have not just one 30-minute conversation, but how about 2 full days with actual conversations and incredible shooting for you guys to really engage. A conference that is more conversational than any other conference has ever been. That's our goal. To be highly, highly interactive, regardless of whether you're watching it, and for everyone to participate. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this either. It is portrait-centric. It involves some of the best in the business, absolute best. Tamara Lackey is on. Vicky Toffer is just in from Nepal. She'll be there. Lori Nordstrom will be there. Julia Woods, who I think is probably the best in the business at photographic sales, and she's fantastic with a camera. And of course, my friend Julieanne Kost from Adobe will be there. A combination of upfront talks as well as highly interactive practice stuff. Vicky's going to kick off the whole thing after I intro it with a whole mini session. You can see it live and actually tangibly get your mind around what you actually do in one of those mini sessions and how you can leverage it to really jumpstart seasonal business or your year. So anyways, we have a lot coming. I encourage you to check it out at escalatelive.com. But today I want to jump in the show. And today's show is all about design and the interaction between design and photography. And I don't know about you, but for me, design is one of those things that I have esteem for and kind of a mild resentment toward. I feel like I'm supposed to be good at design because I'm a photographer, but the truth is, real designers, they have a different kind of magic, a different kind of mojo that I wish I had. And sometimes I get confused about what I should be paying attention to and what I should be trusting other professionals with. And I thought it'd be great to have my friend Jeff Wallace come on. And Jeff has experience working with some amazing high-end companies, Pioneer. He's talking to me about a contract he's working on right now for Ferrari, doing some really cool things from industrial design, across the spectrum. So without further ado, I want to welcome you to the show. Come on, Jeff. And what's nice is there'll be no time delay today because we're all together. We're sitting awkwardly close.
And it's extremely hot.
And it's extremely hot. We have to turn the fan down so you can hear us a little bit. So as we get into it, again, my encouragement is to jump on and ask the questions so we can bring you on and join the conversation. And although I know for me, when I come to these things, I actually like just to hang out over at the chat room sometimes more than listening in, but my encouragement is that you would hang out here too. And by the way, if it's helpful for you guys, because I know there has been a bit of controversy around the blog, I see you, Matt Seville, in there, and a few others who comment on the blog. I would love to be candid and open the dialogue on that conversation if that would be interesting at the end, if we have a little time. But we are going to have to be pretty diligent with our 30 minutes this time because of the folks that are coming in for the workshop. But I hope this is good times. So, Jeff, without getting too lost in all these announcements, it's that time of year. Announcements are there's a lot going
Absolutely.
on. But I know you and I met through a while ago through you were actually just helping me out with something.
Sure.
And we got in a lot of different conversations. You run many businesses, from photography to graphic design to industrial design. You do a lot. And why don't you just kind of get folks up to speed a little bit on how those worlds connect and why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, the industrial design doesn't connect as much. That's kind of just another side deal.
By the way, most people don't even know what industrial
Okay,
design
well,
is.
Industrial design is actually what you're staring at right now. If you're looking at a computer monitor, if you're looking at your webcam, anything like that, industrial designer tends to design what the feel and what the look of you're looking at is. So if you have an Apple, the industrial designer did the silver casing and the look of what you're looking at. So that comes into play in photography on Canon side or Nikon side or anything like that, where they get to design what the camera looks like. However, with graphic design and photography, that's what connects quite a bit more for me in my businesses.
Is there anything that's corollary? Because like when I hear that, what immediately comes to mind is, so I pick up a Canon camera and there's an angle of curve to it, and even some of their ads they'll put up the camera and it'll look silhouetted and it'll look like a person. And they do so many kind of thoughtful things, or car elements, and I always take those things for granted, like, well, somebody just took care of that.
Sure.
But there's real professionals who take care of it.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation between designing hardware things like that for the industrial world and more kind of the visual design stuff that we might do in our world?
Yeah, it comes with kind of just looking at shapes too. Like you say, like industrial design and the shape of the camera or something like that. You can actually, use that in the sense of how you're taking your photographs and, trying to find a certain shape in the shot you're taking. Just kind of using more of an art to it.
That makes sense to me. It seems like there's a lot of, well, I guess in all aspects, like I play with my kids a lot, and we really spend most of our time talking about triangles, circles, and squares. And it seems like that's kind of what that world is too. Like even when I look at really well-designed websites, it seems like there's this kind of feng shui feel or proportion to those primary.
Absolutely. This is funny because a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't draw. And what I tend to say is, you can draw. Just draw some shapes and put them together, and they'll make something out of it. So, look at a person. That's a circle for a head and twigs for a body.
Well, some are more circle than others. I'm more of a square, sadly. And the sun is kind of coming out again. It's so hot here, man. I can't believe it.
I'm reflecting the light.
By the way, I got to just pipe in here. I don't normally do this because I prefer questions directly, but when Matt Seville says, I must say Canon cameras are pretty sexy and well designed, I just like some of the button placements on the Canon cameras, blah, blah, blah. But before he said, he said, Nikon cameras are still designed more to my brain chemistry. And I say, Matt, that maybe Nikon's affected your brain chemistry, but I could be wrong. But there is a lot to this whole thing.
Yeah.
So you were saying about people not being able to draw, but yet they can do the basics.
They can do the basics. They understand because, everything around you is shapes. Just like you said, websites, they tend to be more shaped. So, that's important. If you can understand basic shapes, you can continually, understand this is kind of like what I'm looking for, and start to design from there. So
if I'm getting started and I want to think about photography and I want to think about design, like for someone, I'm thinking of designers in my head right now who I'm very impressed with, and I get a little intimidated, candidly. I mean, they seem to be able, they go behind some magic door and they come out with this magic stuff. And some of it I think is smoke and mirrors and kind of, it's like a template that they worked off of or whatever. But the real designers, they seem to really have an intuitive sense of the usefulness of the product, where the usefulness meets up with the fashion element of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how much of that stuff should photographers really concern themselves with? Or should that be more things that we should just outsource and just trust to you people?
Well, it's really depends on who you are. If you feel that you can come up with a design, you have that, you know, artistic vision, and you say, I can take this concept that I have in my head to completion, by all means, and save the money, do it yourself. I definitely encourage people out there to learn Illustrator and InDesign, just for basic things like, you know, making a sheet for your prices and packages. You know, show up to a meeting with a bride and show them, hey, here is my packages. You don't want to show them a white piece of paper with, you know, text on there in Times Roman. You know, you want to show up with some kind of element design to it.
Well, there's big business in that. I mean, my friends over at Design-A-Glow, and there's a bunch of places that, you know, they sell, you know, kind of a package of stuff that's templated out, and they want to scale it. Makes sense, and they're beautiful. I mean, if your brand is around the retro anthropology feel, then that seems to be all the rage right now. Well, that works, you know, for certain folks. That brand doesn't work for me, so you know, I'm not going to buy that particular one. But at the same time, it's so cohesive and tied together, and it's just like we were looking at covers of a new book that's coming out, and you know, my publisher, I hope, isn't listening. I'm frustrated because they're not listening to my wishes relative to the cover. But because I think I do have an aesthetic kind of wanting to tie things together. Again, am I going to get myself in trouble if I go down that road, or how will I? Because here's the thing: we know enough people who screw things up with photography because they go a little too far than they should. Isn't that the same with design?
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point with the wanting to stick things together. I mean, because look at any good campaign. Look at Coca-Cola. Look at Pepsi. Look at Apple as who I always go to is Apple. You know, they keep their campaigns very similar. They don't go and change. You know, it's always in a very simple package. There's not too much information on it. It shows the product. And people, you know, obviously it's a brand that people know. Like you see the Apple, you're like, that's Apple. I don't need to, you know. And Nike too. Like how long has Nike had the swoosh? They don't change things. They keep everything organic and together. You know, they may change colors now and then like Apple did, but you know, just kind of, you have to stick with the time a little bit, but keep the soul and heart of who you are in that design. Yeah.
So who you are in your design. Okay, now let's get into it. Now, you guys have to be excited about this conversation. And if you're not, I don't get it. Maybe this is just going to be a conversation between the two of us, which I'm fine with. But as I'm reading like comments in here in the chat room, what is going on for you when you think about your own efforts with your business and what you want to accomplish? Do you ever feel stuck? Do you ever feel like, if only I had a designer, if only I had a branding company, if only I had the right, you know, collateral or logo or font choice, like should I go with Helvetica? You know, and there's a reason why 70% of businesses all choose Helvetica for their font.
It's really known.
It's really,
you can see it everywhere.
It kind of works, you know, but at the same time, because it's so known, like I remember one night, I'm a little geeky with design, but I spent the night surfing around looking at the coolest fonts, and that is an endless. I mean, I can't believe it's kind of like yesterday. I had a client meeting, and the client came in, and I showed them all these pictures of these two little boys on this bench actually they were sitting on, and they're like, they all look the same. They all look the same. And then we went through methodically each one, and then literally out of the same person's mouth, she was like, "They're all so different. They're all so different." And that's kind of how fonts feel for me. And that's fonts is just one element. Then you get colors. Then you get shapes. Then you get, you know, other pieces that are designed on your own. People scanning, taking pictures, importing them themselves. Like you can get pretty.
It's endless. There's, you know, websites out there where you can just go for days looking at different styles. They categorize them. You can, you know, download the Batman logo font down to like, you know, Gilligan's Island. All that. It's just unstoppable.
And you can create your own fonts. I mean, some people. I know one client, design client. She actually designs a unique font for every customer.
That's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Like talk about one of a kind. But if you don't appreciate it, you don't get it. Yeah. So I guess in that regard, there's like the spectrum. There's people who are like, okay, you're talking over my head. I don't give a rip about all this stuff. I just want a website by next week, and then or tonight. And then you have the other side of it, who's like, I've had this website forever. I'm a professional and I know what I'm doing, or at least I think I might give it a shot. But I'm risking kind of exposing my brand if I go down the wrong road. Like for example, I mentioned in my blog post this guy named David Beckstead, who's a hero of mine, amazing photographer. You probably know him. And he, before I knew him, there was a website that I would go to and covet with regularity, and he had this dark and white website, and you came in the thing, and instead of a splash page saying go to the blog or go to your brochure site, it was, do you want to see dark or light? And you clicked on light, you clicked on dark, and all of a sudden it was just this alternative universe, that jaw-dropping images. And then later on, he went with another company and he switched it up and he scaled way back. And part of it is like, you know, when you like a U2 album and then they switch their style and all of a sudden you don't like U2 anymore. Yeah. There was a little bit of that where he kind of came down to earth. His images didn't. He's always been great, but the whole presentation was almost so bigger than life the first time around. The second time it just didn't get me the same kind of way. And it seemed like it was because he either took it on himself or he just trusted it to a template solution or something.
It's hard to tell between that, though. You know, if it was maybe he went with a template thing, they always tend to scale down a lot. You know, the templates are very simple. They're still cool. Like you can get some, you know, Flash templates that, you know, look really elegant and look very clean. But there's nothing like designing something that has your personality in it.
Right.
Whether you did it yourself or you have a designer that's willing to work with you to find what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, a great example of that in my mind is my friend Jen Disney. She's a fast track leader here in Orange County, and she had some design background, so she didn't have a sensibility to it. But she did really alternative products, like she designed beach towels and like just different things like that. And then all of a sudden, she didn't know Show It Sight, but she got Show It Sights, and she's like, I'm going to do this myself. And she kind of holed up for a weekend and learned the software and kind of got into it. And her site's fantastic. I mean, but the reason it's fantastic is because it's so her.
Sure. She's got the little key.
Yeah, the key, and the kind of consistent element all the way through, and even she wears it.
She wears the key necklace. Yeah.
And I think that those choices are really, they're compelling, but not just compelling to the end user, but even to the person whose site it is. I know, like the first time I went to Elevation, they did my branding and design stuff. I felt a greater sense of confidence because I was standing on a stronger brand. Sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is so relieving that I'm not so loco here. But this is fun. But let's take a couple questions. So Michelle Sean Feeney asked a question. I love fonts, but at the end of the day, they have to be easy to read, correct? Now, let's talk about this. Usability and style. What do you
absolutely. I totally agree with that because, you know, if you do an ad, say you do an ad for a wedding blog or something like that, you have a very small limited space, maybe 300 by 100. If you use a font that is just crazy, wacky, kind of out of there, you have like a couple seconds to catch these people's eye, and you want to be able to display your message very quickly. And if it's hard to read, people aren't going to stay on it and go, well, what is that? Because they're just going to keep moving on. That's the way our attention span is nowadays with, you know, all this technology that we have. But yeah, I always say keep it simple. Look at Apple, look at, you know, Coke. They have this swirly thing, but it's very clean. Keep it simple, keep it clean, and, you know, people are going to respond to that.
You know, it's funny. I was just picturing in my head this conversation. I was saying at the beginning we had all those audio problems, and how in a moment people they're just over it. Like they might be my best friend, but they're like, forget you. I'm done with you. And even a couple of weeks ago, we had this gaffe of bringing somebody on and the time delay and the echoing through, and I don't know if you were rusting that week or not. But literally, it was funny to watch the list of people watching, and it literally dropped like 40 people instantly. And I was so like, oh, no, it's technology, it's do something, please forgive me. But that is what goes on for our clients all the time. And you think the client's mindset, okay, they're overwhelmed, say they're getting married, they're hiring a photographer, and they're overwhelmed with 1,000 things that they have to take care of. And one of those things, which is our life's purpose, photography, but for them it's like, I just got to get a photographer.
Exactly.
And you will nurture them and educate them into being your kind of client. But until then, they're just in that mindset. If we don't make it easy for them to walk the path to success, to conversion, to, you know, whatever that looks like, man, we get in our own way sometimes. Like,
absolutely.
Can you think of some examples of, and we don't want to name names, so be careful here. And by the way, my comments earlier about Dave Beckstead, Dave, he's not watching, but he is a hero of mine. And what's great about him is you could put his images in a pile of junk, and people would go, "Oh, you know, he's the greatest." So there's nothing lost on that. But talk a little bit about classic mistakes that people make when they try to get into this whole design element, especially around web.
Well, one of the biggest things that I see a lot is people, you know, they'll go through magazines or they'll go through advertisements, stuff like that, and go, I really like that.
Yes.
I want to redo that
yes.
and put my name on it. And that's where they're losing themselves in the design. They're not designing for who they are. They're starting to design for what I think people like, which in the end is going to come back to hurt you, because that's not your personality. That's not how you shoot. That's just not you. It's just something that you like.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It reminds me of Matt Seville's question here, because what do you think the next big thing is in graphic design, horizontal scrolling sites, et cetera? This is a little different because you're talking about an aesthetic.
Sure.
And this is more kind of functionality. But that does seem like a perennial problem. This isn't really me. It's just cool.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that a lot of people try to do. And I feel like people coming into the industry will do that with anything, not even just their photography, just themselves. Like, hey, I really like that person. I like the way they do photography. I want to be that person.
Right.
And what they're missing is, and I know your book touches about this a lot, is find yourself. Like, this is your business. Stop trying to promote somebody else. Promote who you are. And that's what's going to work for you. The
challenge, it's funny though too, because I did write a book on it, and as somebody who is every 18 months I have an evolutionary process, and it feels like I'm losing my skin. It's this aching process of who the hell am I now?
Yeah.
And I get troubled by that process, and I know that anyone who gets called into it, if they're honest, if you don't feel like the gut wrenchingness of that, you're probably not in it yet. There is a hardness to trying to self-discovery and how to put that into a brand concept.
Well, the one thing that I find for myself too is it's designing for my photography. It's one of the hardest things I think I've ever done, because I feel like I'm never happy with what I'm coming up with.
The moment the site's out, I hate it.
Yep, I don't like it. Let's redo it.
Yeah.
But the hard thing to do is really, like you said, find who you are. Figure out your style. And the great thing that I always tell people to do is like pull out your photography. Really study yourself and start to see where your style is, what you're like, and then go from there and really study who you are, not just what you like from other people in the industry.
Well, I know in corporate life there's a lot of conversations around assessment, and they'll talk about like a 360 assessment where I'm trying to gauge my own sense of things, and then I'll get feedback from people who have been over me in authority or under me in authority or laterally, friends, whatever, and trying to get accurate feedback. But sometimes people don't tell accurate feedback, right?
Sure.
They're afraid or something.
Yeah.
It's funny, the workshop that we're going to do all day tomorrow it's really all around this idea of having a fierce conversation, and we're gonna tell some truth to some people. And it's funny, I actually think it's what people crave the most. I'm coming to that conclusion that people don't want to just hear, it feels like molasses, or vanilla, to hear over and over again, vanilla molasses, to hear like trite answers that don't penetrate, that don't break through.
I actually was talking with a group of people yesterday about this, not in design, just in life in general, and about always being truthful to each other, and especially when asking questions, and act as if one of the analogies I said is act if you were, say, I'm going to open this pie shop, and I really need your honest opinions on if my pies are good enough. Mm-hmm. And if everybody says, oh, your pies are great, and then when you turn around, they spit the pie out, you're going to open a pie store, and everybody's going to come in and just goes, it's horrible, and you're going to fail.
Right. So they're not actually your friends.
Yeah. they're your friends, but they're not being honest with you. And good friends, like you say,
they don't want to be hurtful. Yeah, the best friends will be honest because you trust. Like the wounds of a friend are good.
Well, and if you think about it too, like it's really hard to take like, no, this is terrible. Like I don't like anything about this. Mm-hmm. Try something new. It's hard to take that, but if you really think about it, when people say that, how do you grow? You grow because people are saying honest opinions like, no, this isn't great. Let's, revisit this. Mm-hmm. And, if people are just like, oh, it's good, you're going to go through life thinking everything works, everything's perfect, and you could be way off.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So in that's the encouragement. But it's funny, here's some honesty back to you, because I'm confused. I hear that, but at the same time, I hear you say things like, well, go to Apple and look at Coke.
I just use them as examples in the sense of like,
they found who they are.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't look at Apple and say, hey, I like Apple. I want to design like Apple.
Right.
Find yourself. But, what I'm saying, what works is that they're very clean. They're, they know who they are, and that's all they show. Like, I feel like Microsoft has some huge identity issues because if you look at their packaging, you can't even see anything on it. It's just like logos, and there's this and this is this product. This is what's in this product. It's like Apple just comes in a simple package. They know who they are, and they flaunt it. That's what I like to say. So
well, it's funny. It's one of the reasons I like mobile so much, because it's kind of a cool interface that keeps things pretty simple. Are there any things, to Matt's question, that you think are from a functional perspective, things that are a little bit newer or a little bit more fresh that people should be paying attention to?
I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay.
That's kind of a tough question to answer.
I know. I've been in conversations recently with folks around blogs and, like WordPress versus Foursquare and just different. Maybe it's not Foursquare. I get them mixed up. One of them, no, Squarespace. Okay. Foursquare is like Gowalla.
Yeah.
I don't mean that one. I mean the one where it's a content management software that is doing a whole bunch of things. And WordPress is exploding right now. When 3.0 came out and all the things you can do with it. And it seems like blogs are a kind of space that you can do unique things with that you couldn't do even just a few months ago.
Right.
And then you look at the element like sites like show it sites, and I have a relationship with those guys and I use them and they're fine, but there also is a degree to which it's kind of giving people tools that they may not be ready for, and it gives the capacity to create really bad sites. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I use this guy named Nick Haskins, and he gives me kind of a first draft to play with, and that keeps me a little bit more in the safer zone. But is there anything in, like from a blog to a Flash site to all this chatter about HTML5 and all that kind of functionality that we should be conscious of?
I think that blogs are obviously something that gets the most hits. Like on my stuff, every day that I check my analytics, it's like, wow, my blog is just destroying my website.
Yeah.
People love that personal feeling of a blog. That's the thing that I would tend to stick to, and I know like some people got rid of their blogs, like Jasmine Clare got rid of her blog, or Jessica Clare, I totally botched her. She got rid of her website, she just uses her blog, and a lot of the way that the blogs are going is they're starting to tend to look like websites where you have, profiles and you have galleries and just different stuff like that. But people like the blog, it's updated constantly. You can do actually graphically design with it. And change it, with your photography in the sense of, aligning pictures a certain way before you blog, putting them together in collages.
I know we use this thing called Too Bright Lights, and
that's great. I love Too Bright Lights.
It's a fantastic resource. If you want to check those guys out, there's a couple shows ago with Ross. If you want to backwards, she's one of the founders of Too Bright Lights. If you want to manage some of these things and subscribing, you might want to check out. Let's take a couple more questions real quick. First off, we have a live video question from my friend Heather James. We'll see if this works. And Heather, you're going to have to, Heather, let's do this. Because of the replay. I'm going to drop the call because I don't want the same issue from before. Heather, if you can hear us, my request is that you actually put earphones in so when we talk to you, we won't hear the replay and the echo, because otherwise we'll lose everybody and they won't like me. And I'm insecure and I want to be liked. So. If you don't mind, you can ask the question again. I really like your question, but the echo back and forth won't work unless we have earbuds in. So please do that. Let's take another question from Michelle again. Michelle says, what would be a best practice for menu navigation on websites? Any feedback on that kind of thing?
Would be a best practice. That's kind of a vague.
Well, here's what I'm making in my head of what you said earlier. There is a degree to which there's a simplicity approach, where we're minimalistic. Sometimes I think, like one site that you guys might want to check out is my friend Nick Onken. And Nick is a commercial shooter, very successful guy. Elders and know him. He and I have the same publisher. We had lunch one time, we're talking through a bunch of things, and he's very committed to navigation from a functional perspective of how he can help people get to where they want to go. So his blog site is really interesting. His index sites, everything feels like it's always one page on his blog, but if you go to the lower left-hand corner, when you click on a little button, what opens up is a lot of kind of very intuitive, easy, kind of more dense drilling if you want to get down to spaces quickly. Almost like the column view in a Finder window on a Mac, which I did.
The best answer to that question is like that. Is just kind of look at it how you would want to navigate through it and get quickly to the things that you're trying to get to. Just make it simple for them to see, just real, safe, quick, easy. I want them to go here. They click on that, it goes there, and like you said, you can have stuff that scroll up, that add more content, but keep things basically, what I have is in sections on mine. So, you can do archive, and it goes down in archives. You have the website button, you have, contact me, all that stuff, just real simple and easy to get to.
Yeah, it's funny. I think this is a classic blunder that I did with my site, and is I was all excited because I wanted to do this kind of this little floating mini me on people's websites, and I'd be on their keyboard or whatever, and hi, welcome to the site, and it was a cool idea, I think, and we implemented it really quickly. But what I discovered was because I didn't think through the functionality of navigation, we really missed the boat. Like, I think I've lost several clients just because I made it hard for them to find me. Sure. Like, for instance, it says photographer up in the top corner, and I got some feedback from people, and they're like, yeah, I look at that and I go, is this because I am a photographer?
Yeah.
Is this because I'm looking for a photographer? And those kinds of things really do make a difference. So I do appreciate the question about navigation, but I'm hearing you say, make it as simple as possible, remove obstacles for people to get to where you want them to go.
Yep, and just make it simple, because you do have a very short time from when they hit there to get them involved and get them going.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to await here Heather's question, and we're going to be done here in just a few moments, you guys. But let me see. We're waiting Heather's confirmation.
Hey, Dane, can you hear me?
There it is.
Let me check it real quick. Okay, Heather, you have to confirm that you are indeed ready. Always ready. There you are. Hi, Heather.
Hey, Dane, can you hear me? How are you? Hey, Dane, can you hear me?
We can hear you great, and you look fantastic, and I love the dramatic shadow behind your head. It's awesome. And
That would be because I haven't found a.
Princeton for the roadshow just before Photo Plus.
Hey, Dane, can you hear me?
How are you? I'm doing great. Here comes the delay.
We have a really
So
long
go ahead and ask your
delay.
question. And we'll wait awkwardly while we're.
That would be because I haven't found a.
Oh, she's still hearing the light question.
We have a really long delay.
Okay, we're going to wait this one out. Okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to go ahead. Heather, I think because of the delay, we're going to have to drop the call, just because the delay is too long, and I want you guys I want to be respectful of your guys' time. But I'm sorry, Heather. Go ahead and just ask it on the text, and I'll be sure to add it. The good news is, and by the way, people are feeling for you. I'm looking in the chat room right now. I just love that you went for it. And the easiest way, I should have given you guys a better warning. I'll take the responsibility for that. The easiest way to get on the show is to try to have an Ethernet connection to your computer, have earbuds in, and you'll find that it works a lot easier. So again, I apologize, Heather. But please do ask your question in the text area, if you don't mind, really quickly, and we'll raise that right away. Is there anything else that you guys would want to hear about before we sign off? I know the guys are going to be here in a second. We're going to head over to Spaghetti Factory for dinner, and then we have the event all day tomorrow. But around design, are there pieces that you go, man, I just wish if I knew this one little thing, this would actually help me with some web-oriented design element, like right now. And while we're waiting for that question, why don't you tell them about that cool Ferrari thing? Because I just think it's cool.
What I've been doing is some industrial design for HDMI cables. Pioneer actually just launched it at CEDIA last week.
Okay, so for context, HDMI cables are the cables that go
in the back of your TV. They're the newest. They're not new.
It's kind of a single cord instead of a bunch of googly ones.
Yeah, and so you don't have to do like 3 prongs or 6 prongs to get HD. It has sound and video all.
Well, sometimes it doesn't have sound though.
Not my cables.
Oh, okay. That's good. Your cables.
But they just launched their HDMI cable, which is really cool. It's just kind of a cool, intricate, sleek design, different from a lot of other ones. But I actually got an email a couple days ago saying, "Hey, we're doing one for Ferrari." So I'm getting a chance to sit down and design a Ferrari-looking HDMI cable, which is really awesome because. I grew up around racing. I grew up around cars. I used to race. I raced until I was 20.
What a cool life you have, man. That's just fun.
I've got to experience quite a bit in my life. It's been interesting and a lot of fun. But yeah, just getting the email and saying Ferrari was like, I almost fell out of my chair. It's like, how do you say no to that? Yeah, absolutely, I'll do it.
Ferrari asked me anything.
Yeah, serious. And I just told them they could pay me in a car. So
well, that's good. Okay, so here's a quick question from Heather. And by the way, Heather, you're a hero. What's the biggest mistake you see in design? And if there's one thing that's vital, what is it? It's a good question, Anna.
I think it's just, being true to yourself. Like a lot of the things with design, there's two elements that I'm going to answer that in twice.
I love that.
Thing.
There's two elements.
One, I guess, is people who don't stay true to themselves. You can really tell when someone's designing that's not them.
Yeah.
Seeing something else like, oh, I saw that ad, on a billboard last week, or, it just has their name on it. The other one is just going too far and losing yourself in the design. Trying to push the limit and actually falling off.
Right.
Going too far, like, oh, I like, the cool grunge look. I want the borders. I want all that stuff. And, you add the borders and you lose what you're showing. Like, you don't have the picture. You don't have your name or anything like that. It's just, like I said, pushing the design too far. And you know when it goes too far when you look at it and it's just a complete mess.
Well, it's funny. I remember when I would take, even like beginner Photoshop classes, my instructor would say, like, it's this weird tension of you have to keep pushing, push. But then you'll go, like, save your history. Because you're gonna cross some line and you go, I just ruined everything.
Yeah.
And then just back up a couple steps and have what you want.
It happens all the time. It totally does. And, it happens to every designer, too. And that's, that's why they go get feedback, and that's why there's other people to see it, too. But, just, stick to what you feel is right.
So there's a degree of discipline in the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would definitely just, study yourself. That's the best thing, is study yourself. You can study who's around you, too. That's a great way to be involved, but don't copy them, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I understand, by the way, if you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, I know, but I'm going to copy just a little. The point here isn't some kind of moralistic, like you should or you shouldn't, even though you shouldn't. The point isn't moralistic. It's more kind of, you're not going to feel very satisfied with it. You're going to have a sense of like, it's like, I want to wear these jeans because they look good on somebody else, but when I put them on, they look dumb. And they won't feel right.
Well, what's going to happen from there too is, if you're not feeling right, it's going to change constantly. And the more it changes, the less your brand becomes recognizable. And, the less you become recognizable, the more you fall out of the crowd.
Well, okay, so let's talk about this for a second, because we're going to over time for just a minute. But by the way, great question, Heather. The question I have related to that is, because I talk a lot about don't wait too long to put yourself out there, because another tension people run into is this perfectionistic model of like, I'm going to wait until it's perfect and then I'm going to put it out, because then it's going to take root. It's really going to be me and blah, blah, blah. And it's mythical because they never actually put anything in the marketplace. And even guys like Seth Godin say things like, look, give yourself a deadline. When you hit it, ship. Just do it. Like, it doesn't matter. And some of what I really encourage people to do is like, well, you can recover. You can switch. You can kind of, as long as you're heading in the ballpark direction, that's called evolution.
Sure.
And that's okay, isn't it? Or am I off on that?
No, it is okay. It's just you don't want to do it constantly. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to, like,
Confuse
every
people.
week have something new, or like, I mean, things change. They obviously do. But as long as you keep, like a symbol like Apple, like that's another, I keep going to Apple because they just do it so well.
Yeah.
They used to have the colored apple, and, it changed over time. Like, their identity is kind of now the cool, hip feeling, so it's not that, weird colored apple with the bite in it. Now it's like a silver kind of.
Yeah, monochromatic.
Yeah, it's just really,
Yeah.
sleek and hip looking. They change, but the one thing I would stay away from is just continually changing, rapidly and just aggressively, and like, one day I'm just gonna use colors, like, because colors are so dramatic. One day I'm black, the next day I'm white, the next day I'm red. It's just you're changing so much. Where as a person, you do change, you evolve, like you said, but you don't change that much that quickly.
Right. Because I think it's hard for the clients to track it. It's just disorienting for them.
Yeah. You want to keep your brand your brand.
Okay, so here's an on-the-spot question. If people have more questions about this and they want to engage it, where can they go? How can they stay in contact with you?
They can, go to my Twitter. It's JW Photographs.
I'll put that in the chat room real quick. So
JW Photographs.
So at JW Photographs.
Yeah. And then, you can go to my blog, jeffwallsphotography.com/blog, and just email me if you have more questions.
Cool,
I'm
cool.
definitely glad to help out there.
Great. Well, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for
you
having
guys
me.
for tuning in. Be sure to tune in for Escalate Live next week. And if you haven't registered, please do.